Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's Coffee with Chris, where we break down all the Amazon seller news and opinion. This week, we have something very rare happening. We've got a guest on because there is really one particular news item that should be our focus this week, and it's the handful of bills that have, they're out of Judiciary Committee and are actually going to the House for further debate. And these bills have actually gotten Amazon hackles up, and they released their own statement. So Paul is joining us from the Online Merchants Guild. He's going to break it down so that we can understand it as Amazon sellers. And we'll dive in a little bit about what it means for us, what it may mean for us, and what we can do to maybe help this thing along. So, Paul, thanks for being here, man. I appreciate you spending some time here.
Hey, love it. Thank you so much for having me on. It's important. I've been talking to a lot of people in the group, and wanted to just make sure we get the word out that we're still working on the exactly what are we going to do. There's a big sort of action item that's I can sort of give you a summary at a high level of what needs to be done at the sort of as we get through this, but really this is moving so fast, and although the committee staffers I've talked to will argue it's not moving fast because this has been going on for 2 years and we've been involved in this for 2 years, and so I get that, but this is the one point I might agree with is it's moving a little bit fast, that it's even hard for the people who are trying to be supportive in the right way to keep up. I mean, this is Online Merchants Guild. This is my volunteer work, and it's like it's absorbing. Like I can tell you, more hours in the last 2 weeks have been dedicated to figuring this out. This is the most fundamental and crucial legislation I think we're ever going to see, and it's just united. Like, I mean, we all need to be in the know of what's going on, because it doesn't matter if you're a reseller. It doesn't matter if you're a brand owner. This is everybody getting impacted in almost the same way, and it will be an interesting. I think when I think about sort of an issue that there's a need for an Online Merchants Guild or for an association of sellers, like this is that issue, because sales tax, it's like, well, that maybe does not impact me because I'm a small seller and I don't really have a lot of exposure to taxes and it's kind of dead. Or with price gouging, it's like, well, I'm a brand owner and I don't sell those types of products, so I don't really care. This is not that kind of an issue where you get to pick and choose whether it impacts you. It impacts anybody who relies on Amazon as a significant source of their income. If you rely on Amazon as a significant source of income, you need to know what the hell is going on. Pardon my language. Are we allowed to curse on this podcast?
Absolutely. We can do whatever we want.
All right. I just don't, I don't want to be the offensive guy. I'm from New Jersey. It's a bad habit, and I apologize for it in advance if I get passionate and drop some bad words. I'm gonna try not to.
That's all right.
But you can never take. You can take the guy out of Jersey, but you can't take the Jersey out of the guy.
Exactly.
So
well, let's start a little bit about what the bills are and what they mean. Break it down for those of us who don't have a law degree.
Sure. So we've got in front of me sort of what they call a package of bills. You can go to congress.com and pull them up. I will tell you that the most important bill that we're talking about is this one here in my hand. This is 3825. You can go to congress.gov. You can type in HR 3825. You can just Google 3825. There is a 3825 from the 115th session. We're in the 117th session. And for some reason, the one from the 117th session is the second link to Google when you Google it, not the first. I don't know why that is, but you want the one that says, basically it's like the monopolies. I forget what the title is. It's like something Monopolies Act, but it's Ending Platform Monopolies Act. That's what it is, right? So you want the one that says Ending Platform Monopolies Act. This is the breakup bill. This is the big one. But these are all big in different ways, because there's a theme through all of these bills. These bills have different angles of approach. They talk about the fairness of an online platform. There are bills that address like how you have to be treated. I mean, the theme of all the bills is the idea is that it's got to be fair and equal treatment for every single person. You can't offer preference, right? Now, pay-per-click advertising is not preference if it's done in such a way that the bidding is fair and equal, right? But for example, let's say fulfillment, right? Like maybe we have 3PLs that we use, right? But our 3PLs can't take advantage of Prime, right? We still have to use the 3PL to get it to FBA and then to Prime because, you know, not that it can't all do seller fulfill Prime, right? This bill would say, no, any person who can meet a basic set of criteria can be eligible for Prime. You cannot, we call this tying and bundling, right? So think Microsoft and Internet Explorer, like Microsoft got in a lot of trouble because they were basically trying to force people into Internet Explorer, right? And not giving Netscape the opportunity. And then, you know, that was kind of a monopoly of, you know, early 2000s. What they're saying is you can't bundle and tie. So you can't say, for example, Amazon can't, you know, say, well, only this provider can provide fulfillment services. Now it's got to be open criteria. Take a company like Helium 10 or Jungle Scout. You can't make the API favorable for one but not the other. They'd have to make it equally open API if you're the platform. And that's the key here, is that these bills define Amazon as an online platform. And then it goes on to say that if you're an online platform that is really big, let's just say has a lot of users, has a lot of, you know, customers, right? Very big numbers, like so big that maybe only one platform would be applicable to it. I don't know, just, you know, happens to be Amazon. You know, not intentional, just, you know, any, you know, if Rakuten gets that big one day, then I guess they could become a covered platform under this bill. So, you know, it's not targeted. It's just, you know, we're just trying to, you know, sometimes you get a little big. That's what the bills are about, the online platform. So that's the theme of all the bills. But the bill I care about most is the bill that came through yesterday. The one that, because it was taking them so long to get through markup with the other bills, I was listening to them at 3 a.m. last night, 2 nights ago. And then they eventually, I fell asleep, and then at some point they recessed and, you know, came back and hit up on 3825. This is the one that we care about, because this is the one that really changes the game. But I will say, just going back to the other bills about the fairness, and there's things in those bills that Amazon would never allow. So it's not just the breakup that's the problem. There are things in this bill that Amazon would never allow, like the right to basically have direct links to your store on the platform so you can direct customer, right? The right to have direct communication with the customer, things that just would never work on Amazon. All the bills contain problems like that, right? In sort of the free and fair treatment concept. But the breakup bill is key. So what the breakup bill does is it basically says, if you're a seller on the platform, you cannot own the platform. It is considered a conflict of interest to be a seller on the platform, have access to all that proprietary data, because you're going to be tempted. Not only is it illegal to use that data, but just the fact that you're capable of, and there's that temptation, right? That makes it a conflict. So the Amazon, as we know, could never exist under this bill. They'd have to split up. There'd have to be an Amazon like store, like who would be a separate competitor to us, just the way it is. But no more buy box preferential treatment, which we all know. If they're a vendor in the particular product, they would have to break up fulfillment. I guess that would go with Amazon, but 3PLs would now be allowed to compete. So we'd have a really interesting market where 3PLs could all compete, you know, on price for our inventory and offer the Prime, you know, depending on how they do it, because it's Prime bundling and tying, right? So does Prime stay with the platform? My position is if you do break up Amazon, Prime has to stay with the platform, because Prime is the attention of the users. That is the interstate marketplace. It is Prime members. Prime is every household. It's over 100 million. I mean, who isn't a Prime member, right? And even if you're not a Prime member, it's probably because you're that's why they say households, right?
Oh yeah.
So that's the goal, right? But there's a problem here, big problem. And it's a problem we've been screaming about to the Antitrust Committee for 2 years. Now, we were like the Online Merchants Guild, our submissions to the Antitrust Committee were the most cited resource. I'm not bragging. I'm just trying to explain to people. We really took the stories of everybody. We took the stories of wholesalers. We took the stories of brand owners, and we sure as hell took the stories of retail arbitrage sellers and consolidated it, submitted it, and our resources were the most cited reference points in the antitrust report from last year that addressed Amazon's business practices. So, I mean, we're trying to really make sure that we're directing the communication, that reliable information is being given, so that Congress understands what's at stake. That's what we did. So we're in this situation now where we've got this bill. The bill basically calls for the breakup of Amazon. It just got out of committee. There's just one problem. Amazon doesn't want to be broken up. I mean, is that a surprise to anybody here? Right? Like and they're a big company, right? They're kind of big. Yeah, I used to work for really big companies. I know they don't want to be broken up. They don't like it. I worked for a company that broke itself up. But I'll save you that story for another time. But they had they known the presidency was going to go the way it was, I think it would have been a different outcome. But they thought their number was up and broke themselves up into a bunch of itty bitty pieces, and that was GE, and it's another story. So the problem is that Amazon does not want to be broken up. And starting around 2 years ago, because remember, I've been in this since 2017. I started really getting involved in Amazon sellers, and the first issue I've dealt with, right? Like I deal with a lot of things, right? But the first issue I dealt with was sales tax. Remember that issue where people were getting chased down for sales tax? And what was the reason Amazon didn't collect sales tax for us back in the day? Do you remember?
You have to refresh my memory.
What was it about Amazon that they were saying to the government that makes us different than, say, your traditional, Home Depot, right? What was different about Amazon? Like, in other words, why is it that Home Depot would have to collect tax in their store or on their website, but Amazon didn't?
The only difference would be third-party sellers.
Right. They were basically saying, hey, unlike those stores, we're just a marketplace. We're the mall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we called Bravo Sierra bullshit. Sorry, I should have said it. It's cheesy. We called bullshit on the whole thing because we're like, wait a minute. Wait, whose customer is it? I'm like, when I go to the mall, like if I go to the Apple store at the Mall of America and Apple doesn't want to fix my phone and says I have to buy a new one, I don't get to go to the Mall of America customer service desk and tell them, and they're going to force Apple to give me a new phone. Like, that doesn't happen. I mean, the Mall of America doesn't tell Apple to say, like, don't shop, shop online next time. Mall of America doesn't care. I don't get the Mall of America credit card. I get the Apple Store card or whatever, the Banana Republic card if you shop. Like, we started, and that was the whole thing with tax. It's like we were just trying to say, like, this whole concept that you could avoid a tax through this like kind of labeling exercise of we're not like a store, but yet you kind of act like a store in all the right ways, just not for tax purposes, and also for liability reasons, right? Amazon, if you buy a hoverboard from a seller in China that went through zero, consumer protection protocols that we typically care about as Americans because we're afraid of getting sued, right? And that thing blows up, Amazon wanted to deny liability. I mean, you're not going to open the market to unregulated goods and be liable for it, right? That's scary. But that law actually, like sales tax, right? We don't worry about sales tax. In 5 days, Florida, 6 days, Florida goes sales tax collection. We're done. There's no more states to, that doesn't make a difference anymore if you're a marketplace or not, right? Like when Amazon, but 2014, right? I could buy an Apple MacBook for, let's say, $2,000 on Amazon. And the tax I saved would have more than paid for my Prime membership back then.
Oh,
right?
Absolutely.
Right. So it was like a no-brainer, be a Prime member, right? So that was the advantage. And the liability was a concern. But the liability's gone away because the courts have basically gotten to the point now where they look at how Amazon controls the transaction, especially with fulfillment by Amazon transactions and Prime, saying like, wait, that's BS. You are a store. You're going to be liable. And so what happens is Amazon says, okay, we're going to actually enforce the insurance requirement now. Remember that a couple months ago? Like, we're going to actually check to make sure you have insurance. We're not going to just take your word for it before, we're actually going to check. And having defended, Amazon sellers, both brand owners and arbitrage sellers, in cases where Amazon's been sued because of a product that like an arbitrage seller has sold, I deal with that all the time in my practice. What happens in that scenario, just so you know, like let's say you bought some, clearance vitamins from the Walmart clearance rack, and somebody files a lawsuit saying that those vitamins caused cancer, and they sue Amazon and they sue the brand, right? Amazon, if they don't sue you directly, or even if they do, what's going to happen is Amazon will immediately contact you and say, tender to us, meaning confirm that you're covering us for any losses that we might incur as a result of this lawsuit, and show us your insurance. And that's when we get your insurance company, and they get your lawyer, and the insurance company really just takes it over from there, right? But that's the thing. But that's the way they're going to have to move forward on it. So my question is, in what way is it advantageous for Amazon to now be a marketplace? Do they need to be a marketplace at all anymore? If the benefits that they were receiving as a marketplace, or they were perceptively receiving, are gone, do they need to be a marketplace anymore? Is there any advantage to them being a marketplace? And what would the advantages be if Amazon was a store, like a traditional store? And we were no longer third-party sellers, but we were just vendors, right? So imagine a scenario where, as an arbitrager, instead of Keepa telling you how much money you're going to make, likely to make, Amazon tells you exactly how much money you will make when you scan, because they're like literally dictating the price that they will pay you. And it's like, if you ship us the 10, vitamins you just found on the clearance rack at Walmart, we're going to pay you this much. And it's just vendor transaction, right? So think about a scenario like that. Or, maybe they don't tell you what they're going to pay for it. They say, this is what we think you'll earn. You send it to them. It's on a consignment basis. So instead of fulfillment by Amazon, the way we know it, it's just Amazon retail. You're a vendor, right? You're shipping to them, but they're not going to pay you until the product sells. It's not that much different than FBA is, right? But let me ask you this. Do you think, you ever shop at Costco?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Do you think Costco, I don't know, looks at data about how many razors Gillette must be selling in their stores before saying, gee whiz, maybe we should have a really cool Kirkland razor?
Oh, I would imagine absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely, right? Or do they look at, wow, those Tide pods are pretty cool. Who would have thought to put Tide in a pod? Genius. Do you think we could put Kirkland detergent in a pod and people would buy it? Sure.
Yeah, that's what's in my washing machine right now.
Yeah, those practices, when you put it in the context of a third-party seller in an open marketplace, and that you're a seller in a marketplace and you use the data against them, you're a horrible human being, you're a horrible business company, you're anti-competitive, you're cruel. How could you do that? These people trusted you. You took advantage of your market dominant power. That sounds really bad. But if you reframe the issue and say, well, wait a minute, didn't Costco just take all the data from Tide Pods and said they want to make a Kirkland pod? And isn't that practice of creating store brands or competing against, the brands that also sell in your store, kind of like sanctioned retail behavior for 100 years? And if we're a store, not a marketplace, are we really competing against sellers, or are we just doing the things that retail has done for 100 years? And that was crazy to us, because we saw this coming, because I told the antitrust committee this 2 years ago. I said, be on the lookout for this. They're doing this. They're doing this because all of a sudden, 2 years ago, when Amazon was telling the world prior to that, it's your store, your customer, never our store, all of a sudden the dialogue changed. They're stating to Congress under oath, sellers in our store. I have an email I could probably pull up and read you like 20 examples from going back 2 years of how many times Amazon, if you read what they say to Congress, the message is, it's our store. You are our third-party partners who sell goods in our store, whose goods are sold in our store, right? They have this very trained dialogue now that they're using with the antitrust committee.
That's the exact wording they used in their statement on their About Amazon blog. It's our store.
Right. They weren't saying that 4 years ago because they were trying to dodge taxes and liability. That's dead. Right. So the transition happened. And now it's all about their store. And it's funny because, there were a few California Democrats who were wavering on, and I think they voted against the bill yesterday. And you could hear what they were saying. You could hear Amazon fed it to them. you knew, because the way they were talking, and I don't think they knew that how obvious it was, but to me it was like, oh my God, Amazon, just like literally, are you just reading a script Amazon gave you? There was a woman in California who said, like, well, if you're going to do this to Amazon, you need to do this to Nordstrom, not eBay. You need to do this to Nordstrom, and you need to do it to Walmart. You know, you need to do it to Costco. Like you can't be, you know, one-sided about this. You got to do it to all stores, right? You've got to put this in all stores, right? So you can already hear that, like, they're being trained, like Amazon's allies, to just basically make this argument that Amazon is a store. And here's why that's useful, because all this legislation, it's meaningless. It doesn't apply. So in other words, what Amazon has to do is they have to pivot. If this law passes, and I actually think even if it doesn't passes, because now that they've poked the bear with it and the threat is real, they just can't ever be at risk. So Amazon now has to run for cover. So they were kind of always moving away from traditional retail and trying to make themselves out to being something different, which gave them more freedom to, you know, do the things that they did that just allowed them to get there. But now they've hit a wall, the antitrust committee, right? They were running away from tax and regulation the way retailers normally do, but now they've hit another wall, an even scarier wall, and that's the antitrust, the breakup. And now they're running right back to all their friends in retail and hiding under their safety in numbers and saying, hey, we're in this together. You can't, if you're going to break us up, you've got to break up Costco, you've got to break up Walmart, you've got to break up Target, you've got to break up all those guys, because guess what? They all do these same things we do. We're just stores like that. And that is their messaging, because the definition in this bill of online platform is what's key. It's not, Amazon is a covered online platform because they have certain metrics. But if Amazon can say, well, that's all well and good, but we're not even the online platform, let alone a covered online platform, right? Because we're not even an online platform. We're just a store like Walmart, Costco, Target, blah, blah, blah. They're not, these bills are meaningless. These become useless bills. So what we're expecting to see, and it was scary to see Amazon's comment yesterday, the other day, because they were sort of saying it, like they're threatening the end of third-party seller marketplace. Well, that sounds really scary, but I actually think they're right. I don't think I think they're being disingenuous, because, yeah, I mean, it'll be different. I still think they will be the store of unlimited the store of unlimited shelf space, but it's going to be more official. But the scary part about that to me is, I don't think it puts us out of business in the way that, like, they're saying in that messaging, but putting us in a vendor model and basically saying, you can no longer scrutinize us for all the things that we were doing before, because now it's just sanctioned retail practice, right? Like PPC, pay-per-click advertising, massive margin erosion for sellers, right? Since that started, obviously it has its advantages. There's nothing wrong with it in theory, right? But it has its, it has its advantages, but it is a form of margin erosion, because, yeah, Amazon makes a lot of money, but where did that money come from? It didn't come from the consumer, it came from us. Like, we had to give up margin, right? Because we had to remain competitive with our competitors, and we had to buy for PPC. So we're now in a situation where it's like, well, what is PPC really? Like, how do you translate what pay-per-click advertising is in real world? Well, that's like, I don't know if people know this, but when you go to Walmart and you walk to an aisle, at the very front of the aisle, before you even get into the aisle, like, you'll see Tide at the laundry detergent aisle, right? Before you get in, right? Tide pays a lot of money. It's like paying for the end cap, right? That's kind of what PPC is. It's getting your attention, right, before you can go and see, right? So think of, like, that front of the aisle placement as like the PPC advertisement. And then, like, as you walk further down the aisle, that's like page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4 of the listing results, right? When you search for something, that's all it is. It's just translating what Amazon does today to how that is really just the online equivalent of a physical retail, and all the antitrust stuff goes away. But their ability to put the squeeze on us, that's the scary part, because if they really are now safety in numbers, they're just another Walmart, they're just another Nordstrom, they're just another, which is what they've been saying for 2 years and under oath. It's really funny, because they actually say it under oath. Bezos has said it under oath, like their prior guy who testified back in 2019 says it under oath. But then you go look at, like, a South Carolina tax case where they're fighting taxes, they'll say under oath, we're a mall, we're not a store. So it's such nonsense. But to me, it's like, I have to say, I think we at the online merchant, we support a breakup. It's gotten to the point where, like the alternative is not, it's never going to be the way it is now. It's something is going to have to change. And, you know, whether a breakup actually happens or not, I don't know, but I think we have to position ourselves to push for the breakup, to tighten up that language so that Amazon cannot escape from under this legislation. Because if they do, they will be like Teflon. They will be the Teflon Don. And I'm referring to Gotti, John Gotti. That's where I'm from, that's who the Teflon Don is, not, you know, I'm not making a political comment. But they'll be the Teflon Amazon, right? Like they're just going to be bulletproof at that point. And that's a scary thing, because then to the extent we're continually under Amazon squeeze and feeling it more and more every day, what's going to happen next, if this goes the way it seems to be going, which is obvious, it's a scary outcome, because they're going to put a lot of pressure on us, and it's going to be fully sanctioned. And so this is all for naught. So, you know, my end game for the community of sellers, like what I believe the end game is, and this is the big picture point here, because I'm not saying Amazon will be broken up. The way antitrust can work is, like, for example, let's say they pass these laws, and maybe the laws are written a little bit better, and the government's trying to put the squeeze on Amazon. Well, there's going to be litigation. There's going to be a lawsuit. There's going to be a lot of court battling, right? And maybe what you get to is a settlement agreement. And maybe, you know, where Amazon will agree to certain things that the committee, you know, that these bills call for, and then certain things that they don't agree to, and it's a negotiated settlement, right? You settle antitrust disputes, right? You don't necessarily have to push a breakup. And maybe in that dispute, what comes out of it is, you know, a seller bill of rights. Maybe what comes out of it is certain things are open. Maybe comes out of it is more transparency and scrutiny with respect to how Amazon competes against us, like opening up the buy box. Like, there's a lot of good that could come out of that, even if Amazon doesn't break up. But it has to be not broken up in a way where it's like a fair settlement. But, you know, a breakup would be even better. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like a breakup would be amazing for us. It's just, you know, let's be realistic. Amazon's big. But even if a breakup's not possible, there's still a ton we can do. But the key thing to know is right now is this: how many Amazon sellers are there? I mean, they're saying what, 500,000 in the United States?
Yeah, I think they say 500,000 like active. There are more,
Okay.
you know, open accounts than that.
Okay. Well, here's the message, right? So we don't ask like if I have a plan, like I have a plan at a high level, like we're working on the architecture, trying to build the house. We do have to move fast. But here's the point. There are people in the government right now on Capitol Hill who are going to make very important decisions about your future, right? About your future, your future, your future, how you are going to make a living, okay? But you're not talking to them. They're not hearing from us. Does that make any amount of sense at all?
Yeah,
Amazon
that's
spends
not a good
millions. No, Amazon's going to spend millions lobbying. Why can't we spend millions on lobbying? It's just, you know, you don't bring a knife to a gunfight. You got to fight fire with fire, right? Like sometimes you just have to be lobbying, right? This is just the way the game is played. It's unfortunate. It's disgusting. I hate the lobbying concept. But if you want access to Congress, you need lobby. You need a formulated message. You need consistent messaging. If I'm not going to just tell everybody to go write their congressperson and say something. We want coordinated, targeted messaging that's effective, that's going to get our message across, that is unified. So that's why, like, we're not ready to fully go and say, like, there's been things we've been sending out emails like last couple of weeks, like last couple of days, because we've been getting, you know, messages, and we're reading things on the internet, and we're saying, oh, these Congress people are wavering in these states. Like, we need to, you know, reassure them that this is, you know, they need to be stern at this point, because the last thing we want is for this just to be completely not happening, because everything I just said that might happen probably will still have to happen, because again, if it doesn't happen this session, the threat still remains. Amazon needs to start getting defensive, and they need to start becoming a store as soon as they can. And so we're predicting this one vendor model, but my point is we need to be on Capitol Hill, and we need to raise the money to do it. Okay, 1,000 sellers who contribute $1,000. If you're, you know, should not be hard to raise $1 million. For some reason, it's impossible. Now, maybe that was because, as I was saying earlier, well, maybe I don't care that much about taxes because I'm new, or because I signed up for every state. You know, whether I should have or not, I did. So what do I care? Or, you know, price gouging didn't affect me. I'm a brand owner. Okay, this is the issue everybody cares about. This is the issue everybody's affected by. So there will be more coming from me and hopefully some people, it's just very hard. We're just getting everybody up to speed on what's going on, but I don't want to leave people out of the loop. Like, I'm happy to have that conversation, like, directly with audiences. Like, people just need to know as soon as possible. Like, things are a little, I'm not gonna say scary, but it's interesting. And I think what's scary is looking back 2, 3, 4 years from now and looking at the way things are and being unhappy with the outcome and saying, why didn't we just get, like, 10,000 sellers to contribute, $200? That would have been 2 million in lobbying. That's pretty damn powerful. Like, I mean, PR lobbying. And the analogy I give is, and this comes from my old world of working in big corporate law, right? For really big companies, right? Like, let's say New York City wants to put a label on every sugary beverage, right? And say that, this sugary beverage is bad, or I think New York was, we no more than a medium-sized cup, right? No large sodas, no large drinks at Starbucks. It can only be like a tiny little thing. In about a microsecond, you will have Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Panera Bread, they all get together in a microsecond, and they will have a coalition funded for lobbying, for PR, for litigation, whatever it takes to kill that. That's how the world works when you're in business. But it takes businesses to get big to understand that. And that's why every big business has, like, a government relations office. And they actually have people on the ground in DC 24/7 who just live in, Walmart has people who are living in DC. That's just there all day. And they have people in every state. Yep. Where are we on that project? And that's what the Online Merchants Guild was about. It's about trying to, it's taking a concept I'm super familiar with. And, this is my volunteer project. This is my pet, it's a side thing. I have a very successful law practice. I don't do the online merchant stuff. It's not a money-making thing for me. I'm not trying to pay myself through the contributions. I don't need it. I just want to be able to hire an army of lobbyists and just do it. Because I was having this conversation with a congressional staffer 2 days ago, and she's like, man, if all your people could just get together, raise some money, put a lobbying presence, like, you wouldn't just have a voice, you would own the conversation. She's like, you guys we check all the boxes for dominating the conversation. Do you know why? Well, Amazon's really powerful. How could we ever dominate the conversation? Well, Amazon spends, there's limits to how much they can spend on lobbying. They're not going to spend, we could probably actually spend just as much in the pooling of our funds. Like, and I'm not talking about a lot. There's just, like, okay, 500,000 sellers. If 10,000 of us, can we not raise 100? I mean, right? I mean, 1,000 sellers, $1,000, right? 10,000 sellers, $100. That's $1 million, right? That's an insanely good starting point to do a lot of good. But there's something else we have that Amazon doesn't. Do you know what that is?
What's that?
What'd you do in November? Well, you don't have to answer that question. It's a private question. But what did most people do in November?
Of course, I voted, just like most people. But yeah, we've got votes.
How many votes does Amazon get?
Well, yeah, not as many as us. Well,
Amazon does not get votes. Amazon is not allowed to vote. And to the extent Amazon has any voting poll, it's going to be in Washington State. Okay. Mm-hmm. We have voting poll. The most powerful thing about having an Online Merchants Guild, and even though our membership it's big, we're not like thousands of members. We're not even there yet. This may be the moment where we get it to what it needs to be. But the powerful thing, what I love about it, is that if I need to get to a congressperson, okay, because this is Congress. Let me just kind of clue you in on congressional math, okay? Let's say one person, right, writes into my office and says, this is a problem I'm having and I care about it. Congressman, okay, that's weird. Let's say 2 people write in. Let's say 3 people write in. The more people that write in their mind, they're doing some sort of exponential formula to decide how many people in their district, right? Once they start hearing it repeatedly, they start to do some really interesting math to figure out how many people does this really mean? Because they know most people don't write in, right? But they're trying to extrapolate, okay, what is 100 people in my district writing me and saying, stop, don't do this, or do it this way? Like, that 100 people, that could be like, a percent, that could be the margin in which I barely won my last election, right? That's a serious, powerful thing we have. We have the ability to put real human voting power behind our lobbying efforts because we can tell you, let's do this, let's do that, and so that gives us the ability to own this conversation, not just be a part of it, but to own it. So that seller bill of rights, whether it comes through the current legislation and various amendments or the Senate's, or we just introduce new legislation, right? Seller bill of rights. This is our rights. These are our rights, right? Like these are things we could do, right? We can control the dialogue. And the reason Amazon has always been able to just bully us, it's not just because they're monopoly, just because of where we've got a Congress that, with the exception of a few, like I always joke, it's like we've got, these are the people that ask Mark Zuckerberg how he makes money with Facebook when he doesn't charge for it. I mean, like those are the people making the decision about your future right now, right? And they're only hearing from Amazon. And on the other side, they're hearing from, the antitrust legislators who really are passionate about this. And then there's some special interest groups that don't really they don't really care that much about us. Like they just have these different agendas that, Amazon kind of represents the opposite of. So it's not really that they kind of use us. You know what I mean? They use the,
Yep.
Look at the small business. They put up, as poster children, but they don't really give a crap. We actually do, because we are the people directly impacted, right? We are the stakeholders, right? We're the ones who this impacts. So where's our voice? Where's our direct voice? And so as much as I've been trying to do that, and we've done it, like I said, we're in the antitrust report. They definitely heard us, right? We talk to Congress people, we talk to staffers all the time. We try, but the scale at which we now we need to go next level stuff. So it's about getting us rallied together, raising the money, and growing up. It's time to grow up and play like, big kid business now, and just play the same game that's being played against us. So onlinemerchantguild.org, O-R-G. Sorry.
.org. Thank you.
Yeah, .org. And we are it is a registered nonprofit. Do you know who our chief of operations or chief, did I tell you about who we hired as chief operations?
No, you sure haven't.
So we finally hired somebody. Originally, we weren't going to hire anybody. But there's a person you might know who got about the shortest end of the stick last year, around March of 2020. You might think
I know who you're going to say. I think so.
Matt Colvin now runs our day-to-day operations. He runs because Matt, and it was really a heartwarming story. Like Matt, the same guy that wrote that Amazon statement the other day called Matt like a scumbag in public. I mean, they shut him down because the rule of Amazon is, I always say, people are afraid to talk against Amazon. So there's nothing wrong with speaking against Amazon, because if Amazon retaliates you, they just created a bigger problem for themselves, because that's going to be a media frenzy story in its own right. So that's bad. What you never want to do is you never want to embarrass Amazon, right? So that company that got kicked off for having review cards, that $1 billion electronics company, like that embarrassed Amazon,
Yep.
Right? There were too many New York Times articles. You embarrassed Amazon, we're going to take it out on you. So when you embarrass Amazon unintentionally, but when you complain about Amazon in the news, we don't usually see retaliation. I just think it's a very stupid idea by Amazon to do something like that. I mean, even then. So, but with Matt, yeah, I mean, he had one of those moments where like his events led to Amazon being embarrassed, and they took it out on him. And then, we went to court, we went to battle. And I think it just really hit home, like to him at that moment, like this is like, we really are out there to protect your interests. We really are trying to fight for you, and you need that. You need somebody in your corner, who's going to stick up, who's going to look at something like price gouging, which objectively at a high level, you could say, oh yeah, well, Matt was selling stuff on the internet, and he shouldn't have been selling PPE. There was a pandemic. It was February. It was January. Excuse me. There was no state of emergency. And by the way, he was getting stuff that there was no COVID in the middle of Tennessee or Kentucky. It was all in New York and LA, and he's getting it there. That's where they needed it, so it doesn't get to Kentucky. That was the point. You need the movement. You need the market to move. Even at that point, the president said there was nothing to worry about. I mean, he was absolutely. It was like that drug bust imagery when they took the pictures, like Miami Vice style in front of the stuff. I mean, it was just so. It was just heartbreaking to see that. And so I was really proud to bring him on the team. I was just like, man, I think you're the guy. Like, I think you're the guy that's just going to help me, so that's why people who've been members, you may notice the communication's finally like regular and a lot now, because like when I was doing it, it's like, I don't even know how to work WordPress. I'm a tech moron when it comes to like web stuff. So it's like people like yell at me, and say like, well, we haven't heard from you in years. And I'm like, I know, but I like such a, like for me to figure out how to do a MailChimp every time, it's like, just want to, so I'm really proud to say that we have Matt on the team and he's been crucial. So we're getting the communication out and we're working on a strategy. We're working with some folks. And we're really proud to have him. And I'm really just, and it's not like, it's not like we're paying him big bucks or anything. Like it's not, but it's just, I just feel like we have to pay him something. Like, it's just for his work, and it's part-time. It's not, but yeah, he is the first sort of employee of the guild, and we're really proud to have him there. And just, somebody who can get things working and organized. So
that's great.
So
what should sellers do? What is our next step?
So I obviously joined the guild. Even if today it's $100 a year is the minimum, like it's the minimum, $100 a year. I mean, that is, join if you can. I mean, if you're really struggling, like God forbid, like please do not choose like feeding your family and like the guild. I'm just like, if you have a very successful business, join the guild. It's a 501c6 nonprofit. You can look us up on the IRS website now. It's like, most of the money we raise, like, and I say most as in like, I'm sure it's got to be like close to 90%, 95%. I mean, like we really like, it's just like a little bit of money for payroll, like, just to cover some of Matt's time and web hosting fees or whatever the hell we pay. But it's like the money we raised goes to our outside litigation. It goes to our, lobbying efforts, right? Like we've lobbied in California before, like the 72-hour suspension rule, that was us. I don't know if people even know that. We did that. That was a bill in California. And because it was in California, Amazon couldn't. The one thing that's cool about California is when you pass a law in California, cool or terrible, it's like for big companies like Amazon, it's like you basically have, when California passes law, it's basically a national law at that point in terms of like compliance, because it's just impossible to separate the market in that way. And it's not impossible, but it's, too much hassle. So usually California does have a lot of power in that way, which can be a good and a bad thing. Oftentimes a bad thing. Prop 65, excuse me. So, but yeah, join the guild. Keep checking the website. If you're on the, we're going to stay in contact with you. But that's also the best way to get in touch. Be on the Facebook groups, Online Merchants Guild. Get in our Facebook groups. If you don't even join yet, if you want to wait and see what's happening, get on the website, a Facebook group, and just join in and check it out, or just don't join, but just scan the website, and we'll be with you with an update in the near future. But that's what you need to do. You just need to stay. Obviously, if you're a member, it's easy because you're going to get the email blast from us as we tell you, like, here's where we're at, here's what we're doing next. But check in with us. I'm sorry I don't have like a more, we're working on that campaign. We're working on building that campaign where we can basically, start putting the lobbying efforts together and do that and do that effort. But check out onlinemerchantsguild.org. That's the key thing, and stay following what's up. And if you want to support our law practice, obviously sellerbasics.com. We have all that cool stuff with that if you spend it. But the key point is like the guild. That's what I'm here for. Like I always said, like I love practicing law. Like my big thing right now, like my practice, 80% of it right now is like all the exits for the brand owners, like helping them, with the aggregators like Verasio. Like I'm inundated with these deals. Like it's crazy time. We'll see how they're affected. I'm actually talking to some of these aggregators. I'm like, guys, what are you doing about this? Like, how does this affect your business? You just spent $1 billion on Amazon brands. What's going to happen to you?
Right.
I'd like to see them kick in some money. So tell Prosper to let us speak. Like seriously, like I know that's been talking to him. Like I don't think Prosper understands what we do, and it's annoying because we're actually fighting for them too. Because if we're in a vendor model, like I don't know if there's going to be a Prosper show. It might be, and tell the business leaders like thank you for letting me on. Tell your favorite, Amazon personalities, like let us on, let us speak, let's tell the story of what's going on, and actually care. Like stop pitching the idea that it's all rainbows and unicorns on Amazon. When I see that, I get so annoyed because it's like right now that's not the message. The message is if you're a serious Amazon seller, you need to be in charge of this. Like it's not saying don't start and become an Amazon, but like if you're serious, we need to start taking ownership of our destiny, of our future. So if you see your favorite Amazon personality just like completely oblivious, like let them know, hey, you should be looking into this because it's real. And These are all things we can do. Like just letting Prosper know. Like I'm not saying that officially, but I mean like these are the things that are frustrating because I feel like I kind of feel like sometimes I'm fighting for Prosper and I don't like that, but it's just what it is, because they benefit a ton from what we do. And so I think we need to start being supportive of the organizations that support our industry, right? Not just the ones that profit from us, but the ones that actually support us. And I think over time we need to start developing that, again, using our influence in that way. That like if you're not supporting the mission and if you're just here for the benefit and you're not willing to share in the burden, then you're not a preferred person. Like you're not somebody we should be working with, and so that's why I love you, Chris, because you brought us on. And again, we just want to share a message. We're not here to pitch like big stuff, like whatever. Online Merchant Guild, though, we're just trying to raise that war chest of money so we can get that army of lobbyists and get that PR and just get that engine going that is going to, I think, elevate our advocacy level efforts to the next level so we can control the conversation in Washington.
And that's huge. So guys, seriously, do go join onlinemerchantsguild.org. Paul, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm going to ask you to come back, of course, as this progresses and how things go. And I think this is incredibly important for Amazon sellers to understand so that they do take the right action that's in their best interest and in our best interest. So I really do appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you and we appreciate your audience. And, we love this country, and we love, if you read the Online Merchants Guild Statement Report, you'll see what we're talking about. Amazon is the railroad. They are our portal to the national economy. They are, in a way, a utility, in my opinion. And I love that part of it. I love that story. I love that there are people who 20 years ago would probably, like, the last thing I say, like, you notice the whole thing about, like, people not at work, people like Starbucks can't hire anybody? Mm-hmm. Don't you think we're part of the problem? Nobody's noticing that? Like, how many of the people I know would probably happen to be working at a Starbucks right now if it wasn't for their ability to have an online business, right? Like, this is from 1989, right? If we were in the same situation we're in now, but there's no e-commerce, it's 1989, right? But there's this, we just got to have a pandemic. I mean, a lot of those stories, it's really heartwarming. Like we have the folks who are disabled who are like, I can't work a 9 to 5. I'd be on government assistance if it wasn't for Amazon. Now I'm actually making more money than I would ever make, even if I worked a 9 to 5. Even if I worked on an office job.
A couple of my favorite folks who have come out of one of my courses, the OA Challenge, they're both blind, and they are Amazon sellers.
Oh my God! Please introduce me, please. I need, and that's the thing. It's like we're not being disingenuous when we want to parade you. Like, I think it feels that way sometimes to me, just because it's like I'm sensitive because we want to, like, it sort of looks like we want to parade you in front of people, but it's like nobody gets it. Nobody knows what this is happening. So when California comes in and just crushes small businesses and just it's like, do you have no respect? I mean, I thought you were like the liberal, care about everybody, love state. That yet you're crushing. A lot of our clients are people that they make so much free money, and it's like they didn't go to college. They barely graduated high school. It's like the stories are just heartwarming, and it's an awesome thing. But that is in part because Amazon built the railroad, right? They built that railroad that gave us, for the first time in history, not just access to the local economy. Like, we don't create a business and just, hey, okay, right? Because that's how it used to work back before e-commerce. Like, if you wanted to start a business, realistically, you just build a local, you start your store in the middle of town, right? No, we get to target they opened the entire national economy up to everybody. Liberalized, what's the word? Just opened it up, the national economy, to any player, right? Big or small, we can all access it. So it became that utility. But I always say, it's like the analogy is like if Henry Ford was smart, he would have followed Amazon's approach, and he would have gone to every state and he said, I'm going to build this cool thing called a highway. It's going to right through your state. It's going to be really fast. It's going to create a lot of jobs. I want you to pay for it. I want you to subsidize it. It'll be an amazing benefit. People will be able to get through into your state, visit your state. Tourism will go up. It's great, wonderful. And every state, but yes, one little thing. When we're done building that highway, if Henry Ford was smart, and he was smart, but if he was Jeff Bezos smart, meaning he was like Lex Luthor smart, but if he was a little smart, he would have said, but when we're done building that highway, we own it. Ford. Not you, government. We own it. So the people in the Chevrolets, they get to take the back roads. How many people would buy a Ford versus a Chevrolet if only the Ford drivers could use the highway? Do you see what I mean? Like they built and this is exactly, there's a lot about what Amazon did that is reminiscent of the railroad, of the old Union Pacific Railroad. So sorry to kind of divert out of an exit into some stuff, but it's just there's so much to it's kind of mind-boggling like how we got there. But it is beautiful. What we have is a beautiful thing. I'm passionate about protecting it because I've been a very fortunate person, right? I've many different degrees and had many amazing jobs in corporate America that I actually did like, and actually, I do this out of a passion. I believe me, there's a part of me that would much rather be back at my cushy corner office at GE, looking out the window, going home at 4 o'clock, not working. Like in a summer Friday, I wouldn't even go in the office. It was just beautiful. I had a very, not all corporate jobs were bad, but this is amazing. This is a beautiful thing. And I was the Amazon seller paying for law school 15 years ago before FBA was ever existed. And I'm just, it's so excited. It's such a, like sort of a fate thing to be back in this role and have this opportunity and to see how it's turned out. It's really cool. And I just don't want to see it destroyed. I want to see it thrive, and I want to see everybody continue to thrive and have that opportunity. And that's what we're here to do. So thank you again.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate what you do for the community. And for those of you who are here, who are watching this on replay, do us a huge favor. Smash the like button, of course. It helps the respective algorithms. It gets the video out to more people. But share this with your friends, with your Amazon seller friends. Hit the share button. Pass on the word so that everybody can know exactly where they should go to make sure that our voices are heard, because it is important. And as Paul said, we've got more power than we give ourselves credit for. So thanks again, Paul. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everybody, for spending a little bit of extra time with us on a Friday. And I will see you guys back here next Friday for another round of Coffee with Chris. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.